what we need to do as Bitcoiners is learn, right? The lesson for me in the Kendrick versus Drake battle is just because the convention is currently set up in a certain fashion, it doesn't mean it will be like that forever, right? People actually want other things, right? Actually want better things.
Wow.
But we need to figure out how to package it and then deliver it to people in a way that they actually want to engage with it, right? And
shout out to the Orange Manufacturing Group. They helped me with my logo design, and you know that I'll be ordering their premium hardwood sign and lightning keychain. Accessories are curated from a selection of durable traditional materials built to last. Use the Geyser Fund link in the show notes to take advantage of their trust minimal process, or to save 5%, go to omg21btc.com. That's omg21btc.com and use code AAB21Q. Okay.
cool.
Alors, so KG, it looks like you're in. Can everyone see KG in the audience? Okay, cool. So we can start with all of the fanfare. You guys, thank you so much for tuning in. It's my, I would say, first and a half live stream because Man Like Quakes did the last one. And he managed everything on his end. So he inspired me to try this. And of course, the brilliant KG said yes. He said yes, and I don't want to see the questions. So welcome everyone to Ask a Bitcoiner 21 questions. KG, how are you doing?
I'm all good. How long do
Cool, so we have a
these
delay,
usually take?
but without... Well, that depends on you. The goal is to get through 21 questions in 10 minutes. You decided that you didn't want to see the questions, so you could go through these very quickly, or you could take your time. It's entirely up to you.
Okay, cool.
And whatever zaps we get from the chat will be yours if you can answer 21 questions in 10 minutes. Jean's laughing. Ready?
Yes.
Timer set to 10 minutes. I'll read the first question and then I will start the timer. Ready,
Okay,
ready,
cool.
ready?
Ready.
First question. In layman's terms, it's good. Can you explain how it's possible to send Bitcoin using a feature phone?
Basically, Bitcoin is yet another form of digital payments. And your phone is a digital instrument as well. Digital instruments are not necessarily internet instruments. They are digital because the data is binary data, zeros and ones. And now I've realized I'm not in layman's terms anymore. And so basically anything you could do on your phone, anything you can do digitally on your phone, you can do with Bitcoin, right? You can encode Bitcoin messages and you can broadcast Bitcoin messages to other participants. All the other participants need to know is how your message was encoded so that they are able to decode the message and make sense of the things that you're trying to say. You could also publish it on a book for that matter. And people could then know how to read your book and reconstruct your Bitcoin messages and your Bitcoin blocks.
Kind of layman's. Next question. So Bitcoin is multidisciplinary. Which discipline do you appreciate the most?
The discipline of patience, basically. I don't think a lot of people know how much time is required to do this. Oh, sorry. My internet seems to be unstable. Sorry about that, but my internet was acting up. So I was just saying the discipline of patience, because Bitcoin is really one long-term play. Even from the perspective of a builder, thinking that Satoshi actually built this out and build features into it that will only play out years after his own lifespan. Like I think the mining reward ends in like the year 2100 and something. and you're like, okay, that's incredible. And also from the perspective of seeing other people adopt it, you're like, okay, that's also going to be a very patient thing. Although it could happen quicker, but people are already using other things to transfer value. Things like the Zim dollar, the Argentine peso, the Turkish lira. All of these, personally speaking, even the South African rand, are not the most ideal ways for a person to transfer or store value. But it takes some time for people to move away from the thing that they are using now to something else, or something better, even for that matter.
Yep. What can't Bitcoin fix in South Africa?
So what can Bitcoin fix in South Africa? I think the racial tensions, one big thing, right? So as you know, if you want to understand the racial tensions in South Africa, always check out Elon Musk, and whenever he does something in relation to South Africa. One, I don't think you can get, Teslas are not generally available in South Africa. Starlink is not generally available in South Africa. So many other things are not generally available in South Africa. Well, half of it, the government is at fault. Half of it, Elon is at fault. And, then there's the discussion on the ground where there's a lot of racial tension.
Elon is at fault?
Yeah, there's a history there. There's a history. I don't think I'm gonna use up my 10 minutes.
He's South African. Okay,
yes,
true.
Yeah, I'm not gonna use my 10 minutes on that. Okay. So I don't think.
Fair.
Yeah, well, I don't think Bitcoin can fix those. Just so you get a small glimpse about it, to summarize, South Africa, in its past, was an apartheid state, similar to how Israel is treating Palestine, even though, Palestine has escalated into a genocide. So then the question is, how do you move away from things like that, right? And how do you develop a country from things like that? And a lot of the times in economics, the discussion really is, let the markets decide. But the markets are not really that good at solving injustices. And so now you're like, okay, injustices have happened. Everyone agrees injustices have happened. And we have to build on top of that. So where do we go and how do we go about it? And this is where good leaders come into play. And I don't think Bitcoin can generally solve that. El Salvador is another good example. Bitcoin didn't solve some of the biggest problems in El Salvador, which is the gang violence and the crime and the murders. But a good leader stepped in and did what they had to do. And now El Salvador is right at the top. They with all the most promising countries in the world. And as a plus, they use Bitcoin for a lot of the stuff that they're working on right now. So cool.
Yep, good answer. How is Bitcoin adoption in South Africa?
It's quite good. We've had a lot of early adopters in South Africa. We've had guys like Karel van Wyk build out companies like Lugano, and now he built out CryptoConvert, which is now called Money Badger. And you could basically live on Bitcoin, pay for your groceries on Bitcoin, and all of that good jazz. Nice. And Bitcoin Legacy too. Like if you know what Bitcoin Beach does in El Salvador, Bitcoin Legacy is doing that in South Africa.
So what's the story behind your Rorschach presentation in Lugano?
Oh, basically, we all love
me and everyone else, I think.
Yeah, we all love Rorschach. Basically, I try to make my slides a little different every time. And so I wanted to pair them up with something that captures people's attention and visualize them nicely, but also, pair something with a visual. So since it's the Rorschach ink blots, asking the audience, what do you see? Would then allow me to then have like a theme for the presentation and go through the theme, right? So that is a story. I basically want my slides to be a little different every time, and it gives the audience something to pay attention to even if they don't like what I'm saying.
Yeah, that was so dope. So you talk about being a catalyst instead of a co-founder. How is this concept operationalized? I.e., how do you work towards the organization's desired results without being consumed by the process?
Yeah, so basically, the main reason behind it is, for me, I believe that everyone has a role to play, and especially at different points in time, right? So if you did chemistry or know a little bit about chemistry or physics, you know that a catalyst can speed up a reaction only to a certain point, right? And then you need other components or other elements to speed up the reaction. And the whole thinking is that, okay, cool, I can push things to a certain point, but then at that point I need to bring somebody else to push it further, right? And yeah, to answer the question, yes, that is what I would want to do, right? I would want to have a person there to get the result without necessarily needing me be there to get the result. And the idea of a catalyst is that a person understands that, oh, you coming in to be a catalyst for this.
Next question. What were your impressions of Switzerland, specifically Lugano, when you were here?
Oh no, it's a chill place. Their adoption is also good, right? And I made this point at another talk I had, that basically they had collaboration between the city and one of the biggest companies in the world to deliver what is pretty much the best experience for Bitcoiners in the world. You can just spend your Bitcoin almost in any store in the city. And the conference is good too. It's actually great if you ask me. And yeah, so I would like to see what a project like that looks like 10 years into the future, because it's only going to compound year after year, year after year.
Yep. How do you use Bitcoin in your daily life?
For everything, rent, rewards, experiments. Oh, the time is up.
That's 10 minutes. But you should get like a 1 minute grace because of latency, right?
Yeah, no worries. Yeah,
We'll
but
put an extra minute on the clock, but it's not going to happen. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just saying I use Bitcoin for everything basically, and paying rent, giving rewards, experimenting, and now I'm trying to figure out new ways to use Bitcoin now.
Nice. Oh, Men Like Quakes says, when Tanzania?
Tanzania is gonna be self-custodial, so wait for the self-custodial. Or ask when self-custodial.
If you didn't live in South Africa, where would you want to live?
Probably nowhere. South Africa is the best country in the world. And yeah, maybe El Salvador. Yeah, El Salvador is probably a close second. Outside of El Salvador, I don't think I've been to a place Bali too. Bali is also nice. So South Africa 1, El Salvador, and Bali.
Okay, so I added an additional minute on the clock, which expired. So and Bali. Oh, nice. You did not answer the 21 questions in 10 minutes. We've gotten through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 questions. You did pretty good. You did way better than me. But I think one of the issues is latency. So The next time you come, if you choose to come back, I'm sure it'll be better. And if you want, we can donate any sats that we receive from this live stream to an organization of your choice. I think that's a good compromise.
Wonderful. Yeah, send them through to Bitcoin Ekasi.
Okay, Bitcoin Ekasi. So how did Machankura come to be?
Oh yeah, so I was orange pilling, right? I had quit my job. Before that, okay, before I, it's being slow again. Okay, but can you hear me now? Ooh.
Yep.
Okay, give it like a second, and then I'm gonna come back.
Oh, it's frozen again.
Okay, now it's back, huh?
Oh, wow. Thank you, Kieran, for
Thank you very much,
the
Kieran.
10,000 sats. That's amazing. Very nice. Thank you so much. And actually, I'll take the opportunity to shout out. Yeah, that's amazing. Whoa. I'll take just a minute to shout out the Orange Manufacturing Group. So I'm building this podcast slowly but surely. I'm not good at branding. There's a lot of things that I'm learning along the way. And they really helped me with branding and stuff. My new logo should be ready soon. And once I have it, I'll probably order a sign because they make really beautiful handcrafted wood signs and a keychain. So I wanted to shout them out, and you guys should check them out at omg21btc.com. There we go. And I think KG is back, and we are good with the connection.
Cool. And yeah, sorry about my internet. I don't know what's happening. But I remember your question, which was, how did Machankura start about? So basically, I was working as a software developer, and I was exploring Bitcoin. And yeah, but with everything that I was doing, I was thinking like, oh, how could I bring this back to the neighborhood, right? Like where I grew up. And yeah, so... Sorry about that. So one of the things that kept coming up was, okay, whenever I talk to a person about Bitcoin, it's either they don't have internet, or they do have internet, or they don't have space in their phone, or, you know, a combination of these two, or they don't even have a smartphone, they have a feature phone. So every Bitcoin wallet at the time was an installable app, I think except for CoinOS, which is a website you could visit. And so I was like, oh, it would be nice if a person could dial a USSD code and then get a Bitcoin wallet. And I had experimented with USSD a few years ago, before I actually started working on the Bitcoin stuff. So I was like, okay, let me see what's happening in Bitcoin. And then I paired the two, and then it was good. And basically, Machankura then came out of that.
Nice. Very nice. You solved a real world need. So what advice would you give to aspiring developers?
Oh, basically, build whatever it is you want to build, right? But in the sense that don't build on, don't build on anyone else's platform. Run your own infrastructure. We're at a point where anything you would want to build, you could build, and the technology allows you to build it. And so I think we should just embrace that more and more.
So writer's block. I know a bit about writing. I've done technical writing in the past. Do coders get coder's block, so the equivalent of writer's block? And if so, how do you deal with it?
Yeah, I think they do, but not really in the most part, because I also think coding has become less and less a creative endeavor, right? And if you are still creative with your code, what usually happens is every 6 months you release a new version of a project you've been working on, even though nobody asked for that new version, and that new version doesn't come with any new features. And matter of fact, it doesn't even perform any quicker than your previous version, but it's just that it allowed you to code it in a different way, in a different style. So I don't think you would usually get a coder's block these days, because the work that programmers work on is quite straightforward. People don't usually work on new things anymore, right? How to think about it is, with AI being what it is today, the question is, why are we not seeing more imagination inspired projects in the software space, right? Why are we not seeing the equivalent of what is this? Something that a person is not doing. Okay, in the rocket space, sending people to Mars, right? In the software space, I don't know what that would be, but if I feel that if programmers were being as creative as they could be, we would be seeing more and more companies in the software space really explore things that are not yet explored, and build tools that you cannot imagine, right? Because you have not thought about what they thought about as much as they have. In music, is there something like that in music? Let's say Jimi Hendrix. If you're a music fan, people were talking about how Jimi Hendrix really reimagined what you could do with an electric guitar. I feel we should be seeing, a Jimi Hendrix in the software space, where people are really reimagining what you can do with software. And so, to answer that question, again, I don't think, yes, you can get coder's block, but I don't think software developers are creative enough to get coder's block, because we are not looking to push as many boundaries as we could be. And what's even funny, you don't even need to do cutting edge. You can just do, there's this old technology no one is building for, that you could bring back, like Cobalt or Fortran, whatever these banks used to run on. Can you run Bitcoin on those languages? And should you? No, but it's a creative endeavor.
Yeah, most definitely. So Kaboom says, yes, as a dev, I need to build stuff. And I don't know if you do this on purpose or if it's just the way your brain works, but referring to Jimi Hendrix and the way he sort of used an electric guitar the way no one else had done, it seems so timely, because he used his guitar to mimic the sound of bombs falling, which is, I mean, before that point had been totally unheard of.
Right? And what's this? Then we have to ask why. Why did he do that? Right? Well, obviously he was high, but he also wanted to stand out, right?
Obviously.
Yeah, he wanted to stand out. He wanted, when he was performing at a show, as soon as people heard that, they would have to be like, wait, what is that there? And then come in, right? And yeah, so basically that.
Yep, basically. So if you didn't create Machankura, what would you be doing?
I'd probably be more focused on
Your sound is
Exonumia.
gone. Oh, here we go.
Oh, no, I'm back. Yeah. I'd be more focused on Exonumia, which is translating Bitcoin literature into African languages. There's a lot of stuff I think we could do with Exonumia. It's still alive, but I haven't had really time to work on it as much as I should. And there's really also been a lot of cool ideas I've had for it, because it's ultimately not even about the translations at this point. It's more about the community. Like, if you are let's say even this podcast, I've started seeing some podcasts being translated in other languages where they even get voice artists. So we speak in English right now,
Yeah.
and then we just dub it into French, and then we dub it into Swahili, and then the video is still the same, but then the dubs actually unlock a new audience, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, that would be something I'd be doing with Exonumia, because at the end of the day, whatever media we make in the Bitcoin space, we need to be thinking about, okay, how do we get this to as many people as possible,
Yeah.
right? And I don't want to let conventional media or mainstream media be the one to choose that, or be the one to lead that movement, because they will ask, who is Satoshi Nakamoto? And then they will give the bad answer to that question, and then
Peter Todd.
we are no longer talking about the important things anymore. So it's like, okay, at the same time, most Bitcoiners are really not building an audience, and they are not doing the work that they need to be doing to make sure that that audience actually grows in a manner that it should grow, right? So yeah, basically that. Oh, and this is a funny story. What happened was, before Machankura, and while I was doing the Exonumia stuff, and while I had quit my job, I put up a poll asking what is better to have, right, between a job and an audience, right? So only one person responded to the poll.
That's
right?
a good question.
Yeah, and only one person responded to the poll. And so after the poll ended, that person came back and basically said, you should probably work on your audience, because a poll is a poor quality poll, since it didn't get enough respondents on it, right? And so it's like, okay, cool. Do you need a job, or do you need an audience? And if you have one, you usually cannot have the other, which is also funny.
That's something I'm going to have to think about. If you have one, you can't have the other. Well, I'll ask you, why not? Why can't you have an audience? And when you say job, do you mean like 9 to 5, or do you mean revenue streams?
9 to 5. Income is income, but 9 to 5.
That's fair.
Yeah, usually gets in the way of the things you'd have to do for your audience, and or to cultivate the audience. Even if you are one of those people that doesn't pander to the audience, you are really showcasing what you're doing. Usually the 9 to 5 gets in the way of how you engage with an audience, and how you give the audience something. Or you could also be doing something that requires so much time that you can't have a job. Like a piece of media could take you 10,000 hours, and then you're like, where does that 10,000 hours come from, right? So yeah.
Yeah. It would be an exceptional piece of media at 10,000 hours. That's I'd be expecting like Picasso or like some Shakespearean work. So when did you actually discover Bitcoin?
I heard about it in like 2013, 2014. Didn't pay attention to it because I was like, this thing. Saw it again in 2016 when I was receiving a payment for something, and it was an option to receive that payment. And I was like, if I receive this payment, I'm not going to do anything with it. So I didn't take it. And then 2017, the Bitcoin price is going parabolic, and I'm like, I'm really stupid because I didn't understand what I was letting go. And then in like 2017, I kind of took a deeper dive into it.
So I saw you did an interview on the Bitcoin Standard with Saifedean, and I think that you mentioned that you had taken one of his courses in Austrian economics. At what point did you take the course, and did you take the course after you saw the Bitcoin price going up?
I think around 2018. In 2018, I was in my study mode, and I was reading a Bitcoin standard. Oh, by the way, it's one of the books on display there. I think it's the one you cannot see because my video quality is so low. But yeah, the white one, between 1 and 3. Yeah. So basically, a lot of people were shouting it out. It was saying it was a great book. It answers all the questions, and I read it, and it was a great book. It answered all the questions, even the questions I didn't know that I had. And so I took the course on Austrian economics just to take a deeper dive into the economic side of it all. Because as a software developer, economics doesn't usually come up in conversation, right? Or we don't care too much about the economics of the things. And so yeah, that led me to reading more great books like The Human Action, which is another book I keep recommending to people. And yeah, I'm like, okay. Human Action, while reading all of those books, that's where the word exonumia, or the idea for exonumia, comes from, right? I think Ludwig von Mises, in another book called Theory and History of Money and Credit, was talking about dead languages, right? And how if you don't use a language, it dies, right? It doesn't die because people don't speak the language anymore, but it does because the language does not keep up with how people live, right? So the things you would do on a day-to-day basis, a stream or whatever else, you cannot speak that in the language of your mother tongue or whatever else. So it dies out, even if you do want to speak it. But even in the worst way, is you or the people who only speak that language become second-class citizens because they are not able to interface with the institutions of a country, right? Since those institutions do not support or know how to talk about that language. And yeah, so the idea of exonumia, and probably the name as well, came from that time, the 2018, where I was reading all these books, and basically got a lot of ideas during that time and through those books. There's also a chapter in Human Action called Free Banking, by the way, which I think applies very much to Lightning, or the Lightning Network. So if anyone wants to commit 10,000 hours to just correlate free banking as it's stated in Human Action and how it's being implemented in the Lightning Network, I'd love to read that one day.
Oh wow, that's a challenge for anyone in the audience. Shall we continue with the questions? We've got a few more to go, and then we're done. How do you see the Bitcoin ecosystem developing over the next 5 years?
Honest response, I don't see the Bitcoin ecosystem developing. I see it doing the opposite of developing. What is the opposite of developing again? Divulging? Help me with the English word for that. What's the opposite of
regressing?
Regressing. Yes, that's a great word. I love that.
Like regression? Regressing?
Yes. So yeah, I currently see the Bitcoin ecosystem regressing. I don't really know why, but I think, what is it? Bitcoin is in a weird space, right? It's very big and very in the minds of the general public, but everyone who was here over the past 2 to 10 years, maybe even since the start of it, is fog-brained or hazy. We're not sure where it's going, and I don't think we understand what we should be doing, right? And at the same time, everything we have done to get to this point is almost invalidated, right? By validation, right? Because we were trying to some people were
by validation,
invalidated by validation, right? The analogies the services that we were shepherding people towards, your Coinbases, your Binances, even your FTXs, at their core are bad for the future of Bitcoin, right? For many different reasons. Even the funny thing is, we had this years ago with Manchankura, which was the first display of why exchanges are bad for Bitcoin, right? And we still continue down that path, and we are still continuing down that path. And so I do not see the Bitcoin ecosystem developing outside of it. But what I do see is, since a lot of Bitcoin companies, a lot of Bitcoin businesses have kind of been validated, they are then now in a position to onboard conventional businesses onto their non-conventional businesses, right? And then they are offering conventional offerings to conventional businesses, and then we're like, wait, where's Bitcoin in all of this, right? I don't want to name any names, I don't want to give any examples, but should I? Should I give any examples?
No drama.
Yeah, but
you know what?
I
free speech. You may say whatever you like.
Okay, cool. So I think I saw something with regards to Tether, giving out loans to commodity traders, right? And well, they're in a very prime position to do that, because I think they hold the most US treasuries. I may be wrong, but I know they make a lot of profit from holding those treasuries, from the interest they earn from them. And it's a logical move to make for them. But then the question is, where's Bitcoin in all of that? And yeah, so over time, and as we are growing, this is the funny thing, right? As a Bitcoin company, even for me, with the work we're doing with Machankura, there's always a question: who do you hire, right? Do you hire a Bitcoiner who wants to build, a software developer who's not interested in Bitcoin, who you can tell what you build, right? They don't really care that much about Bitcoin. They wouldn't know what to build. But you say?
No, I was just saying that this seems to be a classic sort of point of friction. You know, business, Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a very powerful tool. I believe in Bitcoin wholeheartedly. And we're still operating in an environment where, for lack of a better term, it's a very fiat environment. So there's still a lot of legacy stuff that's still here. And finding the combination to deal with everything, I think, is quite tricky. Because, I mean, so in the case of Tether that you mentioned, I don't know about this lending to commodity traders. So I'm just citing it because you mentioned it. But if they expand their business model to include this service offering, which is lending money to traders, and with their profits, they go and buy Bitcoin, is that bad for Bitcoin, or is it just, you know, sort of taking advantage of the current transition or where we are in the system?
You just basically described what I'm seeing, right? Which is that not regression, right? Basically, Vietnam is one of the countries with the highest amount of Bitcoin holders per capita, I think, right? But none of them are public about it, right? And so you're like, I think it's like Vietnam and Nigeria, if you look at on-chain movement of coins or something like that. And so I'm like, okay, where and what is all this Bitcoin going, and what are they doing with it? And if everyone in the world right now started holding Bitcoin but was not public about it, right? would we be in a better state or in a worse state than we are or we were in the past, right? And in another way, we also have the thinking that people will use Bitcoin without knowing that they're using Bitcoin, which is the fintechs will be the ones who are using Bitcoin on behalf of their users because it's the superior digital payment technology. But then the users will still see the South African rand, the Argentine peso, the Turkish lira, the Zim dollar in their interface, and they will still get debased, and then they will still suffer whatever other consequences comes with the fiat currency. And then I'm like, okay, cool. Do we want that though? Knowing everything we know about fiat, knowing all of the disadvantages, do we actually want people to keep using fiat even though the infrastructure underneath is effectively Bitcoin? It's just that the Bitcoin is never directly in the hands of the people. So that's why I think I see regression for the most part, and maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, and so that is me.
And the question, do we, I guess we have to define the we. It's the who's the we. Some we's do, some we's don't want to see people using fiat on top of Bitcoin. Which song lyrics best describe your mindset?
There's many. So let me think. There's a song I reference on my Twitter bio, so I'm gonna send people to my Twitter bio. That is a song. It's my Twitter handle is 440URPP. I think even on my Nostra profile. Let me see what I have on my Nostra. Even on Nostra, Kgothatso at 833.mobi.
Okay. The hook on Stu GT's Clean Stuff?
Yeah, check the lyrics to Clean Stuff.
Oh my goodness, happy belated birthday.
Happy
belated birthday, I'm seeing this. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. Still with music. Drake or Kendrick?
Whoever asks that question knows the answer. It's Kendrick all day, every day. Wait, give me a second.
Come a little bit close, or?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. Give me a second. I want to show you some.
Okay.
It's Kendrick all day. It's Kendrick all day.
Yeah, Sats on Sets says
it's
Kendrick
all day.
Yeah, all the way.
It's Kendrick all day.
Oh, okay. It's Kendrick all day.
Yes. Yeah. So
I saw him in concert last year. And it was.
Yeah, I also saw him last year too.
It's Kendrick all day.
Yes. Yeah, but to elaborate on it. South Africa. He came to South Africa for the second time. I couldn't go for the first time, which is where apparently he was inspired to make To Pimp a Butterfly during that visit, or some parts of To Pimp a Butterfly were inspired by that visit. But ultimately, let me elaborate a bit on it. I think Kendrick, is a very interesting person to listen to and follow. One, he's been this good for a very long time, and two, he has not let success slow him down, right? And in the success, he almost always sees the challenge in it. Like, okay, now you're this successful person. What is next, right? And if you listen to his art, or his music specifically, he challenges himself in making the song, right? Evoking emotion out of people, right? So his most recent release is called "Watch the Party Die," and he's quite angry in that song. Well, most people will probably know about not like us. They not like us. They not like us, which is a direct diss to Drake. But in "Watch the Party Die," he's quite angry in that song, right? But what's worse is if you are angry while listening to that song, you'll be angrier by the end of that song because he validates the things you would want to say in a song when you are angry, right? What are some of the lyrics? I think it's time to watch the party die, right? Kill the killers because they want they kill innocent victims, right? Lines like that. And oh yeah, burn the whole village, we start over, it's really that time. We even kill the killers because they like taking innocent lives, right? And yeah, so the other side of it, oh my god, my machine is kind of freezing up. But the other side of it is that, what is this? He's been this good for so long, and if you look at his career, you're like, wait, he only started headline touring by the Damn album, which is like maybe his third album, right? And at that point, he was already solidified as pretty much either top 5 or the best rapper alive, right? And then you're like, how did he not how did he not headline a tour on his second album, because his first album was so critically acclaimed? And also you're like, even before the Good Kid, Mad City, which I'm considering his first album because Section 80, he was still, the label was still small and everything else. Even Good Kid, Mad City was so critically acclaimed, but before that, he had the West Coast Legends, the West Coast Legends were saying he's currently the king. They already handed him the crown and says he's going to carry it, and he's still carrying it to this point, right? But the thing, which is for me the inspiring part, is that he did it with his label, Top Dog, right? And he basically kept the team that he started with to this point. Dave Free, a guy he went to high school with, Top Dog, which is the label he first signed with, and the label which was in his neighborhood. And there's a lot of history between the guy behind Top Dog, I think that, Top Dog is what they call him, and even his father. Because in a later album in Damn, he talks about how Top Dog almost, or did rob one of the restaurants his father worked at, and how that robbery not going south kinda is one of the reasons why he's now here, and Top Dog and his father are still tight, right? And why they was even tight during the robbery, right? So it's like, okay, cool. Him choosing to have a slower progression kind of allowed him to come up with everyone he was with during the come up. And a lot of people kind of think that that saying that says for you are the, what's the word I'm looking for, the average of the 5 people you spend most of your time with. Right? So a lot of people want success in life, and so they think that you should spend more time with successful people, right? So if you were born poor and grew up poor, you start thinking that, oh, I need to spend more time with rich people, but that is not what you should be doing. You should be spending more time with people who are transitioning out of the state you are in to the state you want to go, right? Or people who have transitioned out of the state you were born, because they understand what it is you're going through, what it is you're fighting, whatever demons you may be dealing with. more than a person who was born rich. And this is not to knock on rich people, right? But they also have different fights, and they also need to spend time with people who understand what difficulties they had to go through as rich people. So yeah, basically, back again to the you become the average of the 5 people you spend most of your time with. If you will succeed and become a millionaire and you started out poor, you most likely will only do that if 5 people you've spent time with starting out to now are also going to succeed, become millionaires and everything, right? So with Kendrick, what I like about him is, if you look at the guys in the label, if you look at Schoolboy Q, if you look at J-Rock, if you look at Top Dog,
Yeah.
all of these guys are very successful. SZA as well. SZA, she made the Control album, right? And a lot of the times when they talk about Kendrick, they highlight how, this guy really, got us in the right state of mind to where we need to be and the type of success we need to have. Schoolboy talks about how he was just the hype man. And Kendrick said, no, you should be on the raps as well. And Isaiah Rashad, who makes classic albums and he's really a great rapper, highlights that he has a problem with juggling the success and his personal life, right? And he attributes that to the reason why he takes so much time between albums, because is really
between out,
the life of a musician is goes against the life you would have at home. And one of the things he highlights is how Kendrick kind of finds the right balance for that, and even finding a way to still be able to talk about family and the things, the work he has to do with family, and make a album like Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, right? So it's like, okay, cool, Kendrick. And then now back to the question again. I don't think I can say or rant like that about Drake or any of his albums. And I may be talking really in the opposite fashion if I am talking about Drake, right? If I am talking about... if I am talking about people Drake used to collaborate.
I did not see that coming at all.
Yeah, but it's a response to the question. So yeah, cool.
I didn't see that coming. So Drake started to blow up, I guess, in 2008 or 9.
Earlier than Kendrick.
Before that, he was on a show called Degrassi.
Yes.
I guess so. But he was on a show, and I say I guess so because I knew him as an actor on like a teen drama in Toronto that I never watched, He was Jimmy on Degrassi. I moved here, 2008. Internet, social media was not what it is today. And so I just, went about my life. And then I was at the office one day, and this guy is like, oh my God, you're from Toronto. You must know Drake. And I'm like, Drake? Like, who's Drake? And he's like, and he showed me the picture, and I was like, that's Aubrey from Degrassi. And he was like, Saida, you don't know, this is like whatever hype. And I'm like, because
the biggest rapper in the world.
Growing up, I'm not going to reveal too much, but I like the biggest rapper. Yeah. I mean, the rappers I respected were storytellers. They looked at things from different perspectives. They didn't sound like a teenager going through puberty, and that's what I thought Drake sounded like back then. I didn't get it.
No new
fans. And because I left Toronto, I missed out on all the like home. You're wrong. But needless to say, it took me a while to be like, okay, I guess some of his songs are catchy. If you go out, they play, you'll bop or whatever. But I mean, Kendrick is just like, But I thought I'd ask you the question because it made for an interesting conversation, and I did not see the wraparound to say, I can't say that about Drake. That was good.
So, yeah. And I think...
Who is your favorite artist?
Oh, yeah, but just to elaborate further, because
I think
the other thing...
delay again.
Okay. The other thing that happened, and I'll answer the who's my favorite artist question. But the other thing that happened is when
Okay.
Kendrick got announced for the Super Bowl, people were talking about Lil Wayne, and it didn't make sense to a person who's not American. Um, and the things that they
Mm-hmm.
were saying were weird because they were speaking about Lil Wayne as if there's no more future for him, right? And this would have been the last chance for
Oh
Lil
yeah.
Wayne to kind of do something like this, right? And it only makes sense because Wayne right now is on the downward trend of his career. But what is shocking is Lil Wayne is only like 4 years or 5 years older than Kendrick, right? It's just that he started out
Oh,
younger. He
okay.
started at 14 and he was buzzing because
Mm-hmm.
Cash Money was, a more established label at that time, as well, also through him as well. And so the topic of success comes up again in longevity, right? 4 years ago, 5 years ago, Kendrick wasn't on a downward spiral or downward trend in his career. Even now,
Yeah.
Kendrick is still on an upward trend. And now you're like, why is it so hard for rappers to maintain longevity in this space, right? And rap is a very toxic
Can I answer that?
genre. Yeah, yeah, feel free. Feel free to answer.
So I personally believe that um like rap is today very fiat. So
Mm-hmm.
longevity is difficult to achieve because you've signed a
Mm-hmm.
record contract. You have to
Mm-hmm.
produce X number of records or albums or whatever in X period of time. And I do believe that inspiration is not something that you can program. It's not programmable. You can't say, like, okay, every year for the next 5 years, I'm going to drop whatever. You like, if you have a soul, if you have a story to tell, if you have that thing that makes for good music, you can't
Mm-hmm.
do it like that. And so it's very difficult to be sustainable for, a long period of time because you're always having to produce things. Whereas I think that, and I think of men like Quakes in this and other artists and stuff, when you have the freedom to be able to produce when you produce, it takes a bit of the time pressure off and you can actually come out with things and take a break and then re-release again.
Mm, I fully agree with you. Huh? Mm, but the weird thing is, I think the record label is kind of making your job a lot easier as the artist because you don't have to be the only one figuring it out, right? The labels actually want
Mm-hmm.
rap to be more pop, right? So that it's okay to get a
Yeah.
ghostwriter and work with other producers, which is what Drake has done in his career, right? And also, sorry to keep bashing on Drake, but if he actually
That's
took
okay.
better care of his collaborators and the guy he used as ghostwriters, his career wouldn't have a problem. Like the guy who wrote most of If You're Reading This Is Too Late, Quentin Miller. Apparently, he was having huge issues
Yeah.
while producing that album, and even after its success, Drake didn't say, "Yo, here's a bag. Me and you are gonna do wonders. We're gonna make a lot of money, right? And stay in the
Yeah.
camp." And even with the weekend, who contributed a significant amount to take care of songs, that is, you're like, yo,
Yeah.
if Drake really invested or treated artists or collaborators better, he would always have a long-term collaborator to bring in so that he produces a magnificent album, right? And that is something that I think a Kanye West does quite well, right? Even though Kanye West is more likely to fall out with a collaborator, but he's more likely to reconcile with a collaborator.
And everyone else.
He keeps falling out, but you still gonna get Kid Cudi on the next Kanye album, right? And so ultimately Kanye handles the business, right? You're gonna get attributed, you're gonna get your check, blah 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 blah. It comes with the drama, but the drama also puts a spotlight on you, right? He will say your name, and if you're ready as an artist, drop your song when he says your name, right? If you are Big Sean and Kanye is on Drink Champs and he makes fun of you, drop a song, drop a single, right? The light is shining on you. People actually want to hear what you have to say. Don't wait 2 full years and now you're an independent artist, right? And I also know artists have songs in the bag, just because you're not putting an album out doesn't mean you don't have something where you are just flexing, where you're just trying to keep the muscle strong, right? But who is then my favorite artist? This year I've really loved the work that Kendrick has done, and to me, I feel hip hop is really a stencil for Bitcoin, right? I feel that in the same way hip hop was celebrating 50 years, and the success hip hop has had over the 50 years, we should be expecting something like that for Bitcoin, but way bigger in 50 years. And the challenges that hip hop has with commercial and mainstream attention is really the same challenges Bitcoin is going to have, and the same challenges I've talked about earlier, as we've been validated, we have become invalidated by validation, where rappers don't even understand the type of influence they have. Rappers sometimes don't even believe that their biggest songs can be rap songs. Drake, for example, biggest song, One Dance, which is not a rap song, right? Second biggest song, Hotline Bling, which is not necessarily a rap song, right? Yeah. And then you're like, okay, other rappers feel like they have to do that, right? And if you look at a Lil Wayne, well, this is not as a consequence of what Drake did. Lil Wayne at some point made a rock album. Kanye at some point made a whatever 808 or Heartbreak is. I really cannot place it. Yeah. Maybe pop, right? And even The Weeknd could have been a rap artist, but he kind of made a stencil, right? The success The Weeknd saw as a singer is definitely not the same as the success he would have seen as a rapper, right? There's also an artist called Slack. A lot of people call him Slack, but his name is Black. It's just 6 Lack, right? An artist called Black, who is also a rapper, but he's had a bigger success as a singer, right? So now you're like, wait, Bitcoin companies, right, are they gonna have bigger success as servicing fiat companies than they would have had as straightforward Bitcoin companies? And so now I'm like, okay, cool. We're gonna have that, and we're gonna have to deal with that for a very long time in the Bitcoin space. Sadly, we don't have the equivalent of rap battles in the Bitcoin space, but we kind of do, which is
that would be cool,
how commercially successful can your project be as a Bitcoin company? And I feel like a lot of Bitcoiners downplay the significance that commercial success can have, because it kind of tells everyone else that, oh, you don't have to. You don't have to do pop. You don't have to sing. You could be commercially successful, being a storyteller, being an intricate lyricist, and so on and so forth. And yeah, to answer your question, my favorite rap artist or hip hop artist or artist as a whole is called Ian Kamau. He's actually a Canadian rapper from Toronto.
Wait. It cut out. Say his name again, please. Or it cut out on my end, at least. Can you say his name again?
He's called Ian Kamau.
Ian Kamau.
Yeah. So he's a poet.
Uh-huh.
Continue.
No, continue.
No, continue.
He's a poet? No. Continue.
No. It's all good.
I think my dad knows his father. I think.
Oh, the
you
filmmaker.
You told me that before, and I messaged my dad. So, yeah. I think they're familiar with each other.
Yeah. So, have you gotten a chance to listen to some of his music?
A while ago, I think it was last year when you messaged me and you told me I listened to a few of his songs, but not since.
Okay.
So tell us why he's your favorite.
So Ian Kamau is basically for me on the same level as Kendrick with the pen. And he also, though, hasn't had as successful of a career, and as a consequence hasn't released as much music as I think he should have released. So just from the songs he's released, he also deals with a different thing, right, which is being a weird black man. Right. And the thing is, there's a lot of stereotypes in the black community, right? If you don't fit the stencil of what a black man should be and what a black man should say, it's even hard to date, right? And these are things he finds a very interesting way. Is this
globally you're referring to?
Yeah.
The stereotype of what a black man should be? Is this globally, or is this like in North America or Europe or on the African continent?
I think I've seen things of versions of it globally, right? But it's obviously a local thing. So for a South African Sotho man, there's a stereotype for what a South African Sotho man should behave and should do, right? There's a stereotype for what a South African Zulu man, which is the majority of the population, Zulu. So, and Zulus are stereotyped as being aggressive, right? And then you have to ask, what becomes of all the Zulu men that are not aggressive? Well, ultimately, they come off aggressive because they are trying to fit into a stereotype, right? And other stereotypes that are not really important. But then ultimately, even in the things you're doing, there's an expectation that you should act out how your stereotype fits you, right? And my issue with it is you never at any point learn how to make a decision, right? Because you are doing what is expected of you, right? And other times, the stereotypes are good because they're actually informed by something, right? So sadly, you never learn why the stereotypes is like that, right? And what informs it, right? But the worst of it all, right, is some stereotypes were not by your own people, right? They may have been adopted by them, but they were not created by your own people, and they don't generally have your interest or your own people's interest at heart, right? And I feel like right now, for black men and black women, black people in general, a lot of the stereotypes are by outside parties embraced in the black community because, even the N-word, it's a term meant to, in a derogatory fashion, yet embraced by the black community to take the sting away, but the sting is still there when somebody calls you a nigger, right? And so there's really not so much you can you can embrace it to take the sting away, because the sting is still there, right? As I said, even in South Africa, the racial tensions are still there. Can we say Rainbow Nation? Yes. Can we all favor the rugby team and celebrate when it wins the World Cup? Yes. But at the end of the day, take a walk in South Africa, take a drive in South Africa, you will still see, I'm in the bad part of town, and it's usually just the black neighborhood, right? And it's that way for historical reasons, right? So there, Ian Kamau again, back again to Ian Kamau. He is probably the first rapper I've heard talk about this in a very illuminated way. And why rap is powerful is because it's catchy, right? So if there's a positive message in a catchy song, right? It's like King, put the medicine in the dessert or something like that, whatever the saying says, right? Put the medicine in the sweets or something like that. You are then in a position to have a great mantra, right? And he had an album called Love and Other Struggles. Exactly. Right? And I even like the title. I'm like, Love and Other Struggles. And why the title is great, it highlights that love is not easy, right? Anything that has to do with love, you might as well put it in the same folder as all the struggles you've had in your life, because that is what it is, right? And so I'm like, I'm like, why is no one talking about love like this? And I was still young, and so a few years after that, I started listening to Kendrick Lamar, and so it was like Ian Kamau and then Kendrick Lamar, and I feel like that's what some of it Kendrick managed to do with an album like Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, but he's been doing it in different capacities because he's in a different world and he's dealing with different issues. And if you listen to Damn, songs like Fear, songs like Feel, he's addressing it in a certain way, in a certain light. Even in Good Kid, Mad City, Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst, and you're like, okay, cool. He's speaking for a lot of people and not just himself. So there, what is the other thing to highlight? Basically, Ian Kamau also has a song called Choose You, which is a breakup song, right? And I like that song because he only spoke about the things he loved in the woman he broke up with, right? And only at the end of the song does he highlight that this is a breakup song. And I fell in love with the lady just from the description. She was a friend of a friend with beautiful brown skin, said I look kinda, blah, 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 blah. And he rapped that on the beat of International Players Anthem with Andre 3000 and UGK, right? And if you know what the International Players Anthem is about, Andre's part is about Andre letting go of all these girls so that he marries one, and then he's just talking about, now I'm not on the market anymore, and everyone else is talking like a player though. And then this guy decides to take that specific song and make one breakup song, but which is primarily a love song, like the old school love songs. And how he did it, he put the sample at the end of the song, and the sample is like, the Lenny Williams "Because I Love You," right? Because I love you. Oh, 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 oh. You know, those old school love songs, right?
Yeah.
That's what the international players anthem, or that's the type of song the international players anthem sampled. And so he's like, okay, cool, I'll take that and also write a rap song out of that, in the spirit of the original sample, in the spirit of, yes, this is a breakup song, but there's all these things you loved about this person, right? And you also suffered, yeah, during the breakup. You didn't just, let go of the person you love. You had to really think like, yo, what am I gonna do? Oh, this is what I liked about them. And why I like that and why I love Young Kamal is because at the same time, every breakup song in rap music is I ain't fucking with you, right? You little stupid ass bitch, I ain't fucking with you. Right?
And yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Same, yeah.
So then I'm like,
tired.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, cool. At least we have something else. We have an Yankama. We have a common with B, who on the song Faithful, he's like, I was walking around and in my mind it occurred, what if God was a her? Right? And then he uses that as the analogy for the relationship he's having with his woman, right? And it's very hard to have a healthy relationship if you are a heavy consumer of rap music. Right? Because everything you hear in a rap song most of the time is not good. Right? So, or is not contributing good.
I want to... I want to like push back just a little bit because earlier you talked about what's happening in Bitcoin, the difference between like business and Bitcoin. I'd like to make the distinction between music, rap music, and the music industry or music business. I think that there is a reason why we hear certain lyrics all the time. And the thing is when Men Like Quakes was on, I told him I was so grateful because he's got songs with no cussing, so I can listen to them with my daughter present. And what you were saying about that mantra that's constantly being repeated and how powerful that is, I agree with that 100%. And I think that in North America, at least, I won't speak about Europe or Asia or Africa, but in North America, the model used to be that certain songs would only play on radio, then on certain networks, and on like certain songs would only be distributed. And coincidentally, all of those songs talked about drugs, killing, mistreating your woman, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, and I'm not trying to censor what people say. The N-word is used all the time. I'm just saying that it's just ironic that there's no variety in the storytelling. There's no variety in the vocabulary. There's no variety in the beats. De La Soul, back in the day, A Tribe Called Quest, like progressions can't be made if we're separate forever. These are lyrics that are positive. You talk about your differences, but it's still moving towards something that's higher. And it's like in the 2000s, I'd say the lyrics just went in a direction where I'm like, why is it only these types of lyrics that are being perpetuated all the time?
Yeah. So it's weird, right? But the issue is with the artists, right? Is with the purists that do not spend enough time thinking about the commercial side of the equation, right? Yes, you've made a great album. You've made The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, right? Have you figured out what you're gonna have to do to commercially get it in the ears of people who need to hear it, and also solidify its place in the culture, whether or not you release another album? Have you thought about that? And I think the issue is a lot of artists have not thought about it, right? And so they are unable to take up the slot that all these songs we deem as problematic are taking up, right? And the only reason is, those guys thought about it. Those guys spent time to say, okay, cool. I'm gonna need this song where I talk about killing my op on the radio. Oh, Sexy Red. I'm gonna need the song where I talk about my rich baby daddy. You know? And rich baby daddy is probably the
Wait.
Mm-hmm.
Can you say baby daddy again, please? That was
baby
precious.
daddy.
Can you say baby daddy again, please?
Baby daddy.
My rich baby daddy.
Yes, right?
KG has a rich baby daddy, everyone.
Hey, in the spirit of Sexy Red, right? So there, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give you a minute. Okay, but there, I'm like, the thing is, Sexy Red may have not been the person who thought about it, right? But she is more likely to say, okay, I'll let the label deal with everything distribution, right? And I'll just make what I think is what I want to say, right? And then the label puts someone next to her and says, yeah, Sexy, you need to be ratchet. You need to be ghetto, right? And even if right, she would have had some moderation maybe after the first album or maybe after the second album, because as people we grow, right, she cannot moderate herself because the label starts saying, yo, that's not your brand, right? Let's just say she has tried to make a song about practicing safe sex, right? About going to test for STDs, right? Let's just say she really got in the studio and said, "Yo, don't get burned, right? The streets are treacherous, right?" Her label rap is gonna be like, "Yo, Sexy Red, that's not your brand," and she is now. Okay, I'm gonna give you a bit, but I'm gonna keep talking over you, right? After. She is now unable to grow as a person or as an artist, right? And so the issue is, sadly, she got to a point where what she started keeps her what she was, and she is unable to grow, right? And I believe that she has it in her, right? Because we all learn from experiences, but she can never let go of this brand that she has started, right? Or that has brought her the success.
Exactly.
Right? So in the Bitcoin space, just to bring it back to the topic of discussion, and why a lot of shitcoiners stay shitcoining for a long time, is they have had commercial success, right? So, yo, is shitcoining bad? Yes.
And they can't come back.
You know, because, being a degen is being a degen. You cannot talk about talk to a degen about longevity. Right, you can, and they'll probably have something to say, but when it comes time for them to actually practice what is being preached, they will go back to the degeneracy, right? Because that is what brought them to the point that they are. So, and I think though,
their
if the default settings, right? So if the purists actually spend more time thinking about how do we do this in a commercially viable fashion, then we will not have as much of these bad things as we are seeing right now, right? And I feel like looking at the history of rap music, earlier some of these topics and discussions were being had. Your KRS-One was talking about longevity. There was something called the Hip Hop Police.
The Roots.
The Roots. Never do what they do, and
What they
I'm like,
do,
okay,
what they do, yep.
yes, right? And I'm like, okay, there's a reason why that hasn't panned out, right? Is because the Roots has never been
Yep.
as commercially successful as Jay-Z, right? And so Jay-Z, even when he knew that, okay, the young kids are now getting the spotlight, the Drakes are now getting the spotlight, the Kanyes are now getting the spotlight, he was still thinking, yo, I could still drop this album through an exclusive deal with Sprint or whatever telecom he dropped his album through, and everyone who got or bought a device was getting his album on that, and he secured sales before he dropped the album, right? And you're like, okay, that is easy enough. But unless the purists are actively thinking about these things, it won't be done. Unless Bitcoiners who have a problem with shitcoining are thinking about, okay, how do we make Bitcoin more secure? How do we get Bitcoin in the hands of more people? It doesn't work out. And when mainstream media steps in, mainstream media will not want to answer the types of questions we have, right? Because mainstream media, one, believes that convention is okay. Right? Convention may not be sustainable,
of course,
but it is okay. And so what we need to say is, okay, let's figure out, okay, how are we going to do this more? How are we going to make this more commercially viable? How are we going to ensure that even if a person does not care about how lyrical a song is, going back to rap, they will at least love the beat, right? This is what Kendrick did very well in his battle versus Drake. A lot of the songs have great beats, right? Even if they are weird beats, even if they are beats that an untrained listener doesn't quite understand, like Meet the Grams, when they hear dun 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 dun, it's like, oh, okay, let's listen, let's hear. What you said about Jimi Hendrix, play the guitar as if a bomb is dropping, right? And he, as I said, he's trying to evoke an emotion out of the listener. A lot of people were scared after they stopped listening to Meet the Grams, because he wants you to be scared when you listen to that song. He talks about heavy topics, and 4 verses in the song. One for Drake's son, another for Drake's parents, a third for Drake's supposedly unclaimed child, and the fourth to Drake himself, right? After each and every one of these verses, a person is like, what is he going to talk about next, since he said all of this in the first verse? Then he talks about to his parents and does a lot of crazy things. One, tells his father to ask for more money, right? So, which makes the conversation tricky if ever his father has to actually ask for money from Drake, which will eventually happen. Now Drake has to think, are you doing this because Kendrick told you to ask me for more money so that I can claim my blackness more, right? 2, it tells his mother, yo, don't ignore all these risky things that your son is doing with women, right? Because it may be worse than you think it is. And compare him to Epstein, I think, right? And so on. And then tell LeBron James and all these celebrities to stay away, you know? So then, third verse talks to the unclaimed daughter, which may not be true, but he has a history of not claiming children. And so now everyone who listens to it is like, okay, cool. Yeah, I can see Drake not claiming it as another child. And so now, fourth verse, which is really the heaviest verse of them all, he has a man-to-man with Drake and says, yo, so on and so forth. I don't even have hate for you, but these are the things you should work on, and this is how you should work on it. You know, you should get a therapist. You should blah 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 blah. Okay, and
Yeah.
highlights that he's a liar, that Drake is a liar, and a lot of the things he's done in his career are now working against him. And fun fact, Drake did get a therapist, and the therapist quit because Drake won't stop talking about the beef, right? And Drake, for some reason, decided to put this in a song. I don't know why. We don't have to know that your therapist quit on you, man. We know that the battle was bad, but anyway, cool. So Kendrick did all of that, and people were scared after listening to the song. And now what we need to do as Bitcoiners is learn, right? The lesson for me in the Kendrick versus Drake battle is, just because the convention is currently set up in a certain fashion, it doesn't mean it will be like that forever, right? People actually want other things, right? Actually want better things.
Wow.
But we need to figure out how to package it and then deliver it to people in a way that they actually want to engage with it, right? And yeah, so that is me. With the topic of Bitcoin, and I love that Kendrick and versus Drake beef. I study it on a regular basis just to see, okay, it can happen. You can go against the most popular element in your genre or in your field and win off a skill, right? And all you need to be is prepared and do what you need to do, right? So there's another rapper mentioned by Kendrick Lamar on Watch the Party Die. He's called D1, right? So the thing about D1 is his real name is David. And D1 is a Christian rapper, and he loves the story about David and Goliath, and almost everything he says, he uses the story about David and Goliath as an analogy, right? So this is a funny thing. Well, it's not even funny, but this is a highlight for me. He said, in the David and Goliath story, it's quite possible that David would have taken his slingshot and used it against his own people, right? Taken the gift that God had given him to eliminate the enemies and free his people, but used it against his own people as a soldier for Goliath and whatever Goliath stood for. Because ultimately, you know, when someone tells you, yo, don't fight against the establishment, what you do is fight against your own people, right? And especially if the establishment is against your people, and it's on you as a person to make the decision that, you know what, I am going to stand for my people and not against my people. And you should believe that, okay, whatever it is that God gave you is sufficient to win in the fight against the establishment or a Goliath or the enemy or evil, right? And so that is yet again why I believe that Kendrick versus Drake was a very important thing, because Kendrick didn't have to highlight and stand for real hip hop, right? And he could have just said, yo, it makes no point going against Drake because Drake is the most commercially successful rapper to date, right? And commercially, he will win, right? But turns out commercially, Kendrick did win. And he consciously made the battlefield in the commercial space. He put most of the songs he released during the beef on Spotify, on YouTube, so that people could see, oh, these are how many people are playing Kendrick Lamar versus Drake.
Oh, it's
and Drake. Okay, cool.
It's so while we wait for it to unfreeze, I just got an education because I never saw the Drake Kendrick he's back. I know he's gone again. Yeah, I never saw the beef like that whatsoever in terms of how to commercially package Bitcoin, especially as a business owner as KG is. So this man is genius. I'm just going to read a few comments while we wait for him to come back. Man Like Craig says KG needs a music show. I totally agree with that. Bitcoin and music. He also says the labels own the prisons, probably. Sabina says he knows Sexy Red. Oh wow. Laugh emoji. Same girl. I'm dying over here. Like so Kaboom Zap 21 sats and Man Like Quake says again, Nikki, Megan, Sexy. The next will be more ratchet. Yeah, unfortunately. But I do believe sincerely that decentralized music distribution, the ability for fans to pay creators directly, value for value, I do think that this model can foster better lyrics, more sincere lyrics, and not lyrics that are only on brand, like KG was describing with Sexy Red. She can't talk about getting tested for STDs because it's not on brand. Which I thought was hilarious. He's back.
Yeah,
Can you
I'm
guys
sorry
see
about it.
KG in the live stream?
Yeah, it seems the internet
Let's see if
chose
we can
a
see.
very interesting day to be iffy.
Yeah. I think we're good.
Yeah, but I think, yeah, it's a sign that we should be concluding.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, good. So, yeah, I was not expecting, I was not expecting you to frame the Drake Kendrick beef in such a way. I have grown very cynical over the years, and so I find it interesting. I appreciate Kendrick as an artist. I love the beat on Not Like Us, most definitely, but I didn't give it that level of time to analyze the way you have. So thank you for that analysis, and I will definitely go back, read the lyrics, and think about what you've said. If you want to say more, you're more than welcome to on that topic, or we can go to the last question. It's entirely up to you.
Let's do the last question before my internet says, you know what, you talk too much, guy.
So the last question, you talked about this earlier. It is, what is exonumia?
Cool. So Exonumia is project that is translating Bitcoin literature into African languages. But for this, I think I'm just gonna. But I did touch on it actually. So exonumia.africa is the website, and ultimately, one of the first things I thought about was, okay, Bitcoin is great and everything I've learned and read about Bitcoin is also good. But if I'm going to go back to the township and have a conversation about Bitcoin, it shouldn't be in English because, English is like a second, third, fourth language for most people in South Africa. So these articles, these books have to be in local languages, right? And as I did say, it was inspired from reading Theory and History of Money and Credit, I think, by Ludwig von Mises. It's Theory and History, and the subtitle is Interpretation, Social and Economic Evolution, I think. I may be wrong. And yeah, dead languages, but the impact that dead languages have is not just that people stop speaking the language, but that people who speak only that language are unable to interface with their institutions. And I believe that with Bitcoin being the future, we need to be able to talk about Bitcoin in pretty much any language. And yeah, so that's the whole mission for Exonumia. And yeah, the other thing about it is the word and the name Exonumia. So from Wikipedia, exonumia are numismatic items such as tokens, medals, or scrap, other than coins and paper money. These include good for tokens, badges, counter-stamp coins, elongated coins, encased coins, souvenir medallions, tags, wooden nickels, and other similar items. It is related to numismatics, concerned with coins which have been legal tender, and many coin collectors are also exonumists, right? So yeah, basically I see Exonumia and everything on the website as content that helps people understand more about money, right? If you're reading up on Bitcoin,
Yep.
the ultimate consequence of that is you learn more about money. And yeah,
Yep.
basically, yeah, that is what we're trying to do with the project, right? And so we hope that more and more people are going to learn about money, but not just in English, but in African languages. And yeah, so that is
Yep.
the aim of the project.
Can you share the link in the chats here so that we can add
Okay,
it to zap.stream?
okay, cool.
And while you're looking for that, I'm going to take my time with this question because I don't know how to
Mm-hmm,
formulate it. Actually, I'll
mm-hmm.
just blurt it out.
Okay.
How are you so smart? Like, how
Uh,
are you able to see things in so many different domains and put them together?
I have no idea, right? But I think it's a consequence mainly of rap music, right? I grew up as a rapper, right? As a
Oh,
teenager, in my
yeah.
local scene, I was a rapper and a DJ, right? And so as a consequence, I would go
Yeah.
with my brother and brothers from other mothers to rap shows, to rap conventions, and I would learn all of these different things about the
Okay.
industry, needle time, and everything, right? But in its nature, rap music, while hip hop takes from multiple disciplines, right? Is not just about rap, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
there's the art of sampling in
It's
rap
poetry.
music,
Yeah.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
poetry, rap is just rhythm and poetry, right? So even in poetry,
Mm-hmm.
poetry is a whole field on itself. If you want to be a writer, you
Yeah.
fully explore the field of poetry, right? But if you want to be a rapper, you need to explore that field of poetry and then bring it back to this rhythm and poetry. And since you're doing it with rhythm and poetry, your pacing is quite different, right? Now you have to deal with what,
Yeah.
jazz as well. Jazz has cats. So rap is that, but with actual words. You like, yeah. Kanye was, for the longest time, was my favorite rapper. With know it's been a while, sweetheart, we hardly talk. I was doing my thing. It's like a really simple rhyming scheme, but it just rolls off the tongue. I know it's been, blah blah blah
Yeah.
blah. The song starts with she don't believe in shoes and stars, but she believe in
She does.
shoes and cars. And it's like catchy. And even if you listen to Lil Wayne, he mastered swag, right? And swag is, yes, you can say a lot, but learn when to not say anything, right? The pause fulfills a very important purpose in rap music. What's a good swaggy a milli a milli a milli a milli a milli I'm a million here, I'm a young money
Yeah, that
million
song's pretty
here,
dope.
you know
Yeah.
and so
Tougher
the
than
thing,
Nigerian here. Yeah.
hey, and there's some pauses here and there, and all in the right places. But the thing with it is, even in
Yeah.
music, the pause or silence plays a very intricate part. So I'm saying all of this to say this. With rap, collaboration is quite important. You collaborate with people you admire. You collaborate with fields you admire, and you just take pieces and put things together and see what works. And when it works, people embrace it, right? Hip hop is not here because of
Yeah.
cultural reasons. Hip hop, in fact, is counterculture, and a lot of the great rappers are currently not releasing music because they don't feel as if they are hip enough, right? The hip part is new, right? And so in hip hop, you're always listening for what is hip, right? And you're always trying to see, okay, what can I do with that hip
Mm-hmm.
thing for this thing, and the hop in it is getting other people to, you know, hop to it. Like, can you get people to sing to your music? Can you get people to dance to your music? And yeah, so I am approaching hip hop and Bitcoin generally in a similar lens. And funny enough, a lot of the early hip hop albums in South Africa and a lot of the early hip hop musicians are not commercially successful. Right? And even though they were speaking about it in a very sure way, yo, hip hop is going to be one of the biggest genres, not just in South Africa, but the world, they are not commercially successful. And even me, I stopped rapping when I went to university, right? I had to make a decision. Do I continue down the rap path, or do I follow something else, right? And see what's happening. So since I've been doing this thing with my brothers since 14, I had like 4 years of experience in rap, and I was like, okay, I don't really see how this becomes commercially viable. And technically at the time I wasn't even asking that question. I was asking, yo, how do I make a living out of this? And the question should have been, how is this going to be commercially viable? I only got that in my vocabulary after varsity, right? Commercially viable. So there, I'm asking this question now with Bitcoin. And with rap music, what I realized is, oh shit, we were so early that we could have set up the infrastructure that all of these newer rappers were going to use if they wanted to make rap music in Pretoria or South Africa as a whole. We could have became publishers. We could have became distributors. We could have became whatever else is required for the music to actually get to the people it needs to get to. And whether or not our music was commercially successful, we are still in the equation, right? And with Bitcoin, the other reason why I gravitated so much to Bitcoin is, if you want to be commercially successful with Bitcoin and you're early, the only thing you have to do is hodl, right? You don't have to do anything else. Just hold those coins you bought last year. Hold them for 10 years and you will be commercially successful, right? But then there's something else you can do. There's all of this missing infrastructure that needs to be built out. So if you build it out, you are increasing your probability of commercial success, right? And if you are the distributor for Bitcoin, if you are the publisher for Bitcoin, I don't know if miners should be considered as publishers in the Bitcoin space as an analogy, then you are in a position to do way more in the Bitcoin space than you would have otherwise. So yeah, that is ultimately how I see it. I think my time in the rap space has informed or educated me a lot on the Bitcoin side, and I'm just trying to juggle both worlds and make the most of it.
Yeah, you are so dope. Thank you so much for answering 21 questions. If you ever want to come back just to talk about music or a rap beef or whatever, please, by all means, come back. Yes. And before we close out, can you tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, so go to the 8333.mobi website. That's 8333.mobi, and all the socials will be there. The Nostra, the Twitter, the YouTube, whatever you prefer. Maybe even LinkedIn, but not really on LinkedIn that much, but it's still there anyway. And thank you very much for having me. It was a great conversation.